Hi, Circuspreneurs. It's your host, Shenea Stiletto. And today, on this very special mini podcast episode, we are going to explore NIL, circus, or both. This is for my gymnast, acrobatic gymnast, acrobats out there, cheer folk, stunt kids, stunt people, they're tumblers. You're also too in this category now, and this is something I've been talking about for so long, and then now with NIL, obviously, you know the conversation has expanded because it's not just about getting a college scholarship anymore as a gymnast or as even an acrobat now with these new miniature acro competitive programs starting within cheer programs at colleges, which I think is really interesting and just warms my heart and makes me so excited. If you haven't watched any of the acro competition, for someone, I think from like Morgan State and Oregon State University. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but they've been on my radar because I know different coaches that are my dear friends that have sent some of their athletes to these programs, or they've gotten into these programs after they've started at these colleges, and they came from acro, and it's very compulsory form of acro. So it wouldn't say that you can, you don't do routines and things in the same way or the same capacity or the same level. You have a few skills, and a lot of it is kind of group acrobatics as well, which is interesting. So it's a play off of, it's a play off of a few things that they've kind of put together. But a big shout out, as the Morgan State, they just gave me a wonderful shout out for my acrobatic gymnastics career as the first Black and the first American world champion in the history of the sport. And I love the shout outs during Black History Month. It's so special to get those now. These past few years, it's not something that I ever got before in my career. And so it's a wonderful, way to celebrate our achievements in the sport and what we've done in gymnastics and what we've done in acrobatics, and it just really warms my heart to get all of these shout outs for the entire month of February, and these beautiful posts discussing my career as also the first acrobatic gymnast to be inducted into the USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame. I was the first honorary Olympian in acrobatic gymnastics history, and goes on and on. It goes on. I don't need to, continue to say all the things, but but I appreciate the community support, and it's so wonderful to be celebrated during Black History Month along with the likes of Simone Biles and friends from the gymnastics community that we all share so much connectivity within gymnastics and with each other. So these are special heightened times. So back to the original idea behind this episode. I am constantly speaking either in front of the camera or behind the scenes. I, get invited to camps and to conferences and on podcasts to discuss the transition from a gymnastics career, a competitive gymnast career, and then transitioning into circus and not foregoing circus to simply or only go to college, which going to college and having a college degree is really magnificent and amazing. However, I have found that there has been so few over these years that took the path into circus. So, there is a huge base from the gymnastics and the acrobatic gymnastics communities that go into circus, but specifically as well with artistic gymnasts, I have seen that most will forego going into circus and just fight to get a collegiate scholarship, and if they don't get it, they just don't even use their gymnastics at all, and they might have been really, really, really good. And I've always thought that was an absolute shame. And I meet them so often, and parents come to me, or the gymnasts themselves, or I meet them now and their coaches, which is wonderful. But or they start a gym, kind of like what most people typically do if they were in a gymnastics career. You either become a coach, you become a choreographer, or you become a gym owner. And and then the other side of that is you also go into circus, or you go into circ, and you use your skills that way so that you can continue to leverage them, which I think is so important with gymnasts that do so much work, and tumblers, and those in trampoline and double mini. I mean, there is, and in rhythmic gymnastics, there's a whole host of all of us that have these very complex heightened skills. And it's just always broken my heart to speak to the different gymnasts over the years, ever since I was really young. And, the ones that I was meeting when I was younger that were older, that were like, I'm so glad that you went into circus, because I didn't. And it felt like my career just like suddenly just stopped from out of nowhere, and I had nowhere to go. I also want to put in the stunt work in there as well, which everyone knows that I'm also a stunt performer. I've been a part of SAG for a long time, and I love the stunt work that I do. But that is also another industry that so many of us gymnasts and acrobats go into to, again, prolong the use of this amazing ability and skill. And to me, there's just such a pipeline now. The pipeline is almost too good. And I discuss that a lot. But now with NIL, which is basically essentially gymnasts being able to, or athletes being able to, use their likeness to get sponsorship deals and go to college. Before, when I was, competing, it was also sad, because so many of the gymnasts that I did Olympic tours with would have to do those Olympic tours for free. Can you believe that? Like, those Olympic tours were worth millions of dollars for them, but they had to do it for free, or else they would not be able to take a 4-year college scholarship and compete in gymnastics, which is, again, another, prolonging of your career. Is when you get that collegiate scholarship, you get to continue to compete. And I'm not saying that is not a great way to go. It's amazing. And even now, it's like, it's the way it should be, because even when I was younger, because I'm still really young, I knew that that was wrong. And it was, seeing even the gymnasts that had to forego going on the tour because they had to go and get started, and they couldn't even stay, for the entire tour. They couldn't, participate in certain things fully because of that. And it just always felt like, wow, you could have been like set up for the rest of your life. You went to the Olympics, you did very well at the Olympics, you're a name. However, you are going to have to forego all of that for a scholarship. And then will get a degree that, again, for many folks, found a degree, found a passion. So many folks go into, kinesiology and physical therapy and all those things. I love it. However, again, I only say this because of the reflections I've gotten so many times of like, well, I had to find something else that I could use with my knowledge and with all of this skill and everything that was directed at a typical college degree, because that's where I was going, and that was where my opportunity was. But would I have loved to just continue my gymnastics beyond that, and not necessarily, gotten a degree in this particular thing? I hear that a lot. And, for those that are like, yes, of course, I'm a proponent of going to college. Believe me, I discussed this a lot about, my parents, their whole wish and dream was that I was going to go to Stanford. And that was a very real reality for me growing up. And then again, because there was no acrobatic gymnastics opportunity there, or at any college at that time, because the new smaller programs have just sprung up very, very recently. They're very, very new. Shout out to the one that went to the White House. They got a White House tour, which was so cool to see the HBCU acro and tumbling program get a tour of the White House, which was so amazing. They were there in March, and then we were there with the Circus Arts Guilds of America for our huge big strategic meeting. I say huge big because anything that takes that long to get people to say yes to on behalf of Circus Arts is a big, huge deal. I'm never going to not say that, because I was in many, many rooms and having many, many conversations to have that strategic meeting in support of the Circus Arts, in conversation discussion with the Department of Labor, just for those that are not aware of the work that we do and that I have done for this on behalf of the Circus Arts industry, as an advocate. As an acrobat, as a circus performer, and as a former survivor of USA Gymnastics. So, at this point in time, the conversations continue to grow, because now parents see, okay, first it was like, okay, they're dangling the carrot just for gymnastics and just for the scholarship. Now it's like they're dangling, twice the carrot. It's probably even more than twice, because now it's about, well, it could be NIL. Like, what about if Nike wants to take you on? What about if, what about all the sponsorship deals on Instagram? What about all the, the leotard deals? What about, all of it, Lululemon, or, Fabletics. I mean, you see Olivia Dunn, and you see, how prolific you can be now with, having your gymnastics career and being able to take all of the deals that weren't acceptable, which I feel like there needs to be some kind of like restitution for all of the gymnasts that, you know, had to couldn't get all those scholarship deals that couldn't get all the sponsorship deals that would have, and that would have been able to make, again, that money that creates generational wealth, right? Because that's creating generational wealth for someone that maybe doesn't come from money, or doesn't come from money like that. And I'm telling you, the amount of money that was probably lost, I'm sure it's like, who knows, but like, upwards of almost, a billion or something like that. If you think about all these collective years of all of these gymnasts or all these athletes that were, of course, getting their degrees and getting, certain things like that. And then maybe being able to harness some things after college, which I've rarely seen that, to be honest. And, I think that again speaks to how the environment is just set up, and, gatekeeping, and just what you are allowed and not allowed to do. And again, maybe even what folks just haven't even pursued as much. But, I can't speak on everyone, because I know that there's always exceptions to the rules, but I try to give like the most, I would say, generalized representation back of what I see and what I've heard and what I know, from these environments. So, again, what I hear now, what I am here to say when I speak to gymnastics parents, and, they're on the fence. They're like, okay, we don't know if like a college scholarship is in her future. What do we do? And I'm like, well, that's where I come in, because for me, it's like, can she go and get her college scholarship, do gymnastics, and do circus? I'm like, yes, she can do circus at the same time. She can compete as a collegiate gymnast. She can learn a circus skill. In the midst of that, she can start doing shows, or she can hone that circus skill. And, she can start going to circus school as a little gymnast prior to the collegiate level. And then if that doesn't work out, but she still wants to go to college, then she can go to college virtually. She can go to college in person during the day in some cases, and then she can go and do her circus or circ show at night. And I get this asked too, can they do it after? I said, why not? Why not after, you do NIL, you do your collegiate gymnastics career, and then you go and pursue a circus arts career after that? I mean, why not? You have your degree, so you don't have to worry about that, and you've gotten a lot of visibility, and you've been able to stay in the shape and hone a completely new craft, supported in like an environment that's essentially, crafted for high performance, athletics and art forms. And what could be worse? What could be worse than being able to do that? Because there's not a certain time period that you're only able to access this. And I've discussed this as well. If you see that your child is maybe not going to go as far in gymnastics, if you don't want to pursue elite, if you don't want to pursue having them compete too much on a certain level, which is excruciatingly challenging and difficult. And this is not talking about the fact that you're not doing holistic coaching, because even with holistic coaching, this is a very difficult sport. Gymnastics, acrobatics, trampoline, tumbling, double mini, rhythmic gymnastics. It doesn't matter. With, holistic, conscious coaching, which there should always be, and you can create champions by doing that, because I was created as a champion by folks that were like that. Um, they were so lovely, most of them, to me, and I got to see a lot of other, representations of what it's like to not have conscious people coaching you, and to have your best interest, and who really take care of your heart, your mind, and your soul, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're a coach. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's just hard, and that it will bring so many different challenges. So, I discuss this, with parents, in terms of, start thinking about that now. Don't get so wrapped up in one thing, in one goal, because obviously, too, that'll lead you to exploit your child, that it'll lead people to exploit your child, because you feel like there's just this one way of being able to do things. And I don't feel like you can have these conversations now without having a very expansive conversation about your different options and choices. There's too much social circus. There's too many circus programs. I mean, there's a circus program literally in every single gymnastics gym. And if you see that your child is taking more to that, then, maybe you stop them competing in gymnastics earlier. I think that having a very healthy, robust, competitive gymnastics career is really valuable, actually. For those that just like want to start their kids only in circus and keep them in circus, I have seen the difference, and I have seen folks do really, really well when they come out of the competitive space to a certain extent, and then go into the circus realm and the artistic realm, because they have this kind of like reservoir of experiences, that is super heightened, and on a complex level in some ways that maybe you won't get if you're only just doing circus, because it's not like you have to. Competition is a bit different. It's like even when you're competing in circus, right? It's a very different feeling than when you're just doing a show and it's your job. So there's a different edge to competing, which again, it doesn't mean that you can't have that incredible edge as just a circus performer. But I think it depends on your background. It depends on your circus school, depends on your circus upbringing. It depends on the circus structure and the circus environments that you're going into, right? For some folks, and again, I always discuss things. It's not just me saying this. It's because of the opinions and, the experiences that folks share with me that have been on these journeys. I've met, many people that are like, oh, I wish that, I loved my circus experience just starting out, but I didn't feel like people were pushing me hard to get somewhere else. They wanted me to enjoy myself. They wanted me to have fun. And I think that's interesting when you hear that, when people are like, I would have rather have had people push me in a conscious and healthy way, but to go further and to do more and to, to get more skills and to have that edge that you see many times in the competitors like myself, where people are like, there's that level of discipline that maybe some circus spaces don't offer in the same capacity. I also understand that's sometimes because of the environment of the children and the community that they have around them, where you just might not have a lot of parents that want that. And you have to, many times people are running businesses, even if you're doing kind of like a social circus and effort and stuff, it can be challenging if you want to do a high level program and you see that the desire for that is not exclusively also too within the parents, because the parents have to be willing to go on that journey with you as well. And so I know that there's so many different dynamics. I've been in gyms and circus studios like my entire life, and so I know that there's so many different dynamics that affect an environment like that. And sometimes you're just a really fun loving coach. I remember my acrobatic gymnastics coach Yuri. He's Russian, and he's created so many world champions for years and years and years, and I was one of them. I was so fortunate, and he discussed why he wanted to create world champions, and he said, well, my acrobatics coach when I was growing up like was so lovely, but he just loved to like have potlucks with us and like play the guitar. And he would like have us train a little bit, and then he would have us like go and like do stuff like in the forest and like just have fun. He just wanted us to have fun with competing. He's like, and I just always felt like I could have been better. I wish I had a more disciplined coach with structure and all these things. He's like, but he was like the most beautiful person. And the funny thing is that I always felt like my coach Yuri was the exact same way. He's like that kind of person where he's like playing the guitar, and doing all the fun things at the beach, but then had like the hardcore discipline and the vision to make you a champion at the same time. And that, I mean, to have that kind of compassionate, ideology and being able to execute that with his level of mastery is, to me, it's really remarkable. When you see, when you're on the inside of that and you know how much attention and effort and focus it takes to not only be that, but to have that, that intense level of focused psychology, especially when it comes to honoring children and their development and what went into that for him and how many different roads. So again, NIL, circus, or both. I could talk about this all day. I'm not going to. This is my short mini series of this, and maybe I'll be coming to a gym or a conference near you where I discuss this because this has been my favorite topic for years and years and years, and I have always continued to encourage folks, and especially nowadays because it's so much easier to go from the gymnastics realm into the circus environment. I mean, it is literally just laid out for folks in a way that it never was. I'm not saying that it is, but you have Cirque just at every single competition now scouting. I do talk about this as well, which I won't talk about that in this episode, about all the things that parents should also have the information about when they're being scouted and when they're in these circus spaces and how much they need to educate themselves about the circus arts prior to having their children accept these contracts and go into these shows and start off working as a minor in circus and the things that they should know and that they should be aware of going into these spaces, that you should not go into these spaces green, that you should go into these spaces very much aware of the fact that it's an industry. And at any point that your child is participating in it as a youth or as an adult, it is an industry. And that is very important because it is a business. It is not just, this kind of overall communal space, which it can be. And it's essentially you can create your own sense of community in this industry because it's a very forgiving and very communal and very interdependent industry. That's what makes it so beautiful. But you definitely need to know what you're getting yourself into and then how you can prepare your child, especially if you see them on a unique journey where you're trying to see where they fit in appropriately, what is going to harness their capabilities and their talents on whatever level they are, because there's varying in different degrees. You don't have to be the best, to be able to go into a circus or a cirque show. And that's a really big misconception and myth around going and seeking these opportunities, just knowing that this journey can start with your child now and that there are many different degrees, there's many different specialties. There are many different roles that your child can play in the performing arts and the circus arts that can support them on their journey, through the rest of their life and in the capacity of the type of career that they'd like to have. So that is all for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto. This is the Circuspreneur Podcast. We are sponsored by StageLink.com. Thank you to StageLink. And this is a special episode, a mini solo episode. And thank you for tuning in. And please like and subscribe and comment and share the podcast. It helps us to continue to bring you high level content. And we love to do that. So thank you for supporting the podcast. We're here to support you. And I just really appreciate everybody tuning in and for spreading the word about, the information and the education and the professionalism that we try to bring to the podcast, with every single episode. And it's very near and dear to me. And it means so much to me. So thank you again. Until next time.